Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Improved Podcast, the official podcast of Classic Studios. I am your host, Chase Collins, and I hope you are having a wonderful Monday and are having a great start to the new year. I hope you all enjoyed last week's podcast where we discussed our challenge to not drink for 100 days. We have Brian back on the podcast this week, and we're going to be discussing his fitness journey, how he became, this hyper aware, health conscious individual who really takes a systematic approach to his fitness and lifestyle choices that he makes in order to sort of optimize that health aspect of his life. And we dive deep into that today. It's a great podcast. I'm editing it now as I'm recording this, and yeah, it's a good one. What are your goals for this week? I hope you all write them down and send me an email about them at theimprovedpodcast@gmail.com. I love getting those emails from you all, letting me know about your goals and how you're using this podcast to sort of keep yourself honest and on track with the goals that you set for yourself. It's the beginning of the new year, so it's never too late to start those goals and start working toward them. If you want to stick around to the end of the podcast, you can hear all about my goals for this week. And if you just want to jump around in the podcast in general, we do have time codes in the description. So yeah, go ahead and click around to certain topics that you are more interested in. I do that for you, just to make this a more easy listening experience. I think that's about everything that I wanted to go over. I will see you at the end for the outro. Peace.
Improved Podcast. Improved Podcast. Improved Podcast.
What's up, Brian? How you doing? Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a while.
Hey, man. Yeah, it has been a while. I don't even know the last time that we had a podcast together. I guess it was the sobriety one, right?
Well, yeah. That's the last one we did. Yeah, I forgot about that. And that one actually came out like a week ago, probably, or 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Wow, I'm excited for future me to listen to that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to edit that one and listen to it too. I think it's a good one. And it's cool, like we mentioned offline, but we're going to start off this month of January with like a fitness themed month of podcasting. And so starting off with for the last 3 months of 2022, completely sober. That's how we're like kicking off this health month, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's been so far with the sobriety thing. I don't know when this is going to be released compared to that, but I think I'm on like day 81 or somewhere in that realm.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it, so I'm excited for day 100 and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a couple of days behind you. I think I'm at like 77 right now. It's been 10 weeks though. I think that, or 11 weeks. I guess that's what that means.
Nice.
Yeah, quick math. But yeah, I'm excited. Man, today though, work was crazy, so I was like, man, I could go for a drink right now. But hey, only 20 or whatever it is, 23 more days, 13 more days. Quick math, I don't know.
You got it, dude.
Yeah, we're making it work. But yeah, man, so we're kicking this off with like a fitness journey, and I'm really excited to start with you for this month because you're easily you're like one of the most health aware individuals that I know, like in my personal life, and it's really cool. You and my dad probably compete for top spot because my dad is just a crazy maniac when it comes to health consciousness. So yeah, I'm excited.
Joe is a machine,
dude.
No doubt.
It's crazy, man. But it's so funny because you guys have like two radically different like approaches to health and fitness and stuff. Like my dad's pretty much full vegan and does a lot of like core training. That's like what he focuses on primarily, and then does a lot of like cycling and starting to get into running, I think. But it's radically different from what you're doing. So I guess I want to kick this off with kind of like your overall big picture like goals for health and fitness and lifestyle, all oriented around like health and stuff like that. And then we can sort of go into how you got to where you are now, like dating back to like what you said, 13 years you've been doing stuff like this. Or so yeah, I guess take it away with big picture stuff.
Yeah, man. So I just try to uh, build fitness habits into my life, and I've been doing so since I was like 15. So yeah, like 12 or 13 years. But that's when I started noticing, like you go through like the whole, puberty and everything, and your body, you start becoming aware of your body, and you start playing in sports, and you're aware that some kids are bigger than you and some kids are smaller than you. And I played lacrosse in high school. We also, you and I both did taekwondo, and when we were doing taekwondo, I think I was in like 8th grade. So this, I didn't really have um, that mindset at that point. But starting 9th grade, 10th grade, started playing lacrosse, and I played defense. So I needed to be a big kid that could just push over everybody else. So I actually started lifting with my dad just on Saturdays or throughout the week or whatever. He has a little garage gym, and it was so funny. I didn't know anything about lifting, but my dad, who, he spent 20 years in the Marine Corps, he knows a fair bit about it. But it was so funny because pretty much all that we did, we bench pressed, we did biceps, and we did triceps. That's it. That's
Hell
all we
yeah.
did. It was like total, like, like glory muscles or whatever you want to call them, vanity
Hmm.
muscles, bro muscles. Um, but it was good. And I learned like the basics, I guess,
Yeah.
of what's good pain, what's bad pain. Um, so that's kind of where I began this whole thing. But I do want to really quickly just kind of have a little disclaimer. Like when you talk about fitness, if you ask 5 people what their opinion are uh, about certain things, like you're going to get 6 different opinions.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different opinion, and it's because everyone has different experiences. Everyone has different goals, and everyone has a different mindset. So what I'm going to talk about is just like what I did and what's worked for me. I've focused a lot of my energy towards experimenting and finding what works and what doesn't. And I think that everyone should do the same for them, because you can watch a YouTube video or read a blog or something and get, someone else's experience and tips that worked for them. But until you actually try for yourself, you're not going to know. So, anyways, disclaimer over. I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that disclaimer. And I think like that speaks to, what we were talking about at the very beginning with my dad and you, like both two of the most health aware, health conscious individuals I know, radically different perspectives on like and approaches to keeping their body healthy. And yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and no matter where you are in this community, if you want to call it that, there's going to be divisions between what you're doing and what other people are doing. Like, it's funny. I don't consider myself like a bodybuilder by any means, but or like I don't consider myself a power lifter or a power builder or anything like that. I just try to do the best for myself, keeping in mind longevity, um, and keeping in mind also that I'm human and that I'm not going to want to go like 100% all the time. We've talked about this a lot, but like we have the future in mind. Like we're not going to break our bodies right now just for short-term benefits. Like we want to ingrain those good habits and the knowledge of how our own body works, um, and use that information to press forward, and then to
Yeah.
be like your dad, who's quite a bit older than us, but he's really healthy. You know what I mean? And taking
Yeah.
those lessons further in life.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's exactly right. And like the thing I want, anyone who's listening who's not like super into fitness or not, on that fitness journey yet, right? Like this isn't, we're not trying to do like quick gains, like, oh, here's a cheat sheet on how to make, crazy strides in your fitness journey, but here's like a good way to maybe get started, or just showing people that like, yeah, we're all busy, we're all working 40 hours a week, we got tons of side projects going on, but we're still making time for our health and for our fitness because we know it's important for the long term, for that longevity of having like a healthy body, like wanting to keep up with your kids when you're, in your 50s and your kids are like still in high school running around doing stuff. And it's like, yeah, I want to be hanging out with them. I want to be running around. I want to be playing on the boat or whatever. And you got to be, somewhat healthy in order to do that stuff.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, and I don't want to be a burden to anybody. Like I want to keep myself up so that I can help others up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One thing that I do want to bring up is that there's levels to this. Like you don't have to have fitness as your number one priority in life. Those who do, perhaps they're like they have goals of becoming like a professional athlete or like a personal trainer or fitness blogger kind of person. But you don't have to take everything and implement it into your fitness routine. You can start slow and then add on things as you go, or you can just keep at a moderate level the whole time.
Yeah.
But this doesn't have to become your life, and it shouldn't, in my opinion, unless it's your career, because then maybe you should be pretty good at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this everything's in levels, man.
Yeah. That's definitely my approach to fitness, at least right now, is just like I'm pretty basic, just super moderate. Like, yeah, I go to the gym and I lift my weights. I don't have a notepad. I'm not keeping track of like my stats or anything like that. But I know that, okay, if I do these things, like I will see progress, like eventually. Like I'm working out now so that I can keep working out forever. And I know that there'll be results. Like it has to happen. Of course, it's like, okay, I've been working out for 3 years now and like, I still look about the same as what I do 3 years ago, but it's like, yeah, I don't really care. I'm not working out for those reasons. I'm just doing it as like a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, and you know, there's so much to talk about. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can lift and incorporate fitness into your life for reasons of being more like proud of your body and looking better, right? That's a valid reason to exercise. Sure, I totally agree with that. But there's also just feeling better. Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
and I bet you, going back to your point, I bet you feel much better than you would if you weren't incorporating fitness into your life.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, there's countless benefits to exercise that
Yeah.
would take too long to explain thoroughly in this
Yeah.
short amount of time that we have. So
Yeah, yeah. Just to briefly touch on that, and then we can, jump into your journey. But when I was not a lifter in college or anything like that. Like we worked out a little bit, but nothing to form a habit. And when I started working out again, like right, 23, 24, it was like, wow, I can feel my body again. Like my muscles reactivated. It was like, oh my goodness, like all these my body, like I wasn't in tune with it. I didn't know what was going on, and that was like a real like light bulb moment or like switch flip where I was suddenly like, oh wow, I'm sore today because of what I did yesterday, and like that feels good to me. Not necessarily being sore, but just like the fact that my muscles were activated and they were working. They weren't just atrophying to oblivion, and that's something like I will hold on to for forever. Cause like I've been on vacation for the past like 3 weeks, up in Virginia. And like when you're traveling, like it's hard to get a workout in and I can feel it. It's like, oh my gosh, my body is just not awake right now. I need to hit the gym. I need to get back in it. Like this morning, I just went on my first run in like a week and a half. And it was like, oh my gosh, I needed it. I needed it so bad. One, because we were recording this podcast. I was like, I'm not going to be that guy recording a fitness podcast who's hasn't worked out in like 3 weeks. So I was like, all right, I'm doing a 5K. I'm gonna wake the muscles up, and then I'll be ready for this. But yeah, no, you're exactly right, and it's definitely a journey, and so I wanna hear more about your journey.
yeah, and you're explaining like the process of becoming in tune with your body. And I know I'm gonna go off on another really short tangent here before we get going into my history
It's
with
the
everything.
intro. It's the
I
intro.
know, I know, I know. There's this book by an author named Yukio Mishima. He's a Japanese fellow, I'd say like fairly significant cultural person in Japan, or was. He's a famous author, and when he was a little kid, he was just into books and intellectual pursuits and nothing else. He ignored his body, and he wrote this book called Sun and Steel about him awakening into his body and realizing that that's half of who he is. You know, you are your intellectual self, but you also have a physical component, and it's him, um, his journey with beginning to lift weights and, like I said, becoming awakened in his body. So it's just really interesting, and it just kind of goes back to your
Yeah.
point. But
I, I'm
tangent
curious.
over. Oh,
I'm
what's up?
curious when he started that. Like when did it hit for him? Was he like in his 50s? And it's like, okay, I'm gonna, figure this out now.
I don't remember, honestly. He was in the military. Yeah, I don't remember,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was definitely, he was an adult. Surely he was an
Mhm.
adult, and realized that he just neglected his physical self for far too long.
Yeah,
So
and that's so cool though. Like you can start this journey anywhere,
yeah,
You can start today, you can start tomorrow. It doesn't matter.
and my journey is hopefully going to end differently than his journey. He attempted a coup and failed, and then committed suicide.
Wait, like a
Yeah.
coup, like a government coup?
Oh yeah, he tried to overthrow the Japanese government.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
Try to avoid that. That's what I say.
Yeah, I know. It's in my lessons learned from other people. Like,
Right. Yeah,
let's
yeah,
try
there
not
you
to
go.
do these myself.
Yeah.
And this podcast, you know, as a segue, I guess it will include a lot of things that you should not do, and that's the first one. So yeah, man. So like, I was lifting with my dad and everything, and then I started playing lacrosse. And in high school, like I took it pretty seriously, but I didn't know how to apply my energy, so I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna lift as heavy as I can, as often as I can. I was doing like 2 a days. I was in strength and body in high school, so we were lifting weights in school, which was like the coolest thing for me.
Mm,
Um, I definitely like, there's a lot of that vanity, especially from like a young kid, like just becoming aware of his like physical body. You know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of vanity, a lot of looking at myself in the mirror, like, oh, heck yeah, this is awesome.
mhm.
Um, and that definitely doesn't last forever, but it was fun as a high schooler getting into this kind of stuff. And, you know, dude, I was like 6'1" or 6 foot in high school. And I started out as like a 130-pound kid at 6 feet tall, 140 pounds maybe, which is a
Yeah.
toothpick, absolute toothpick. And I came out of high school, not huge, but I was like 180 pounds at like 6'2", 180. It's sizable.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, high school it was just lifting with the lacrosse team, lifting in school, but you know, you have to, you can be told to do a lot of things and not learn the things for yourself. So we had coaches that were teaching us, or telling us to lift the certain lifts and certain rep schemes and stuff like that. But I wanted to take it a step further and really learn, like, well, why are they telling us to do these things? Like, what is making them choose this movement and this rep scheme over something else that I've heard is good?
Mhm.
Why aren't we doing like CrossFit type stuff? Why aren't we doing like why would you choose one over the other? So I spent a lot of time and energy looking into this kind of stuff and drilling into like nutrition um and like programming and stuff. And that's when like I just learned a lot. I just got into like research of like people do studies about this stuff all the time. So
Yeah.
it was fun as a high schooler to really get into it. And then yeah, so that's high school. And then college, we had like a state of the art gym. Actually, that wasn't until junior year. They had a really bad gym for my first 2 years there at James Madison University. But it was still better than anything that I'd had before. So just continued, fitness and lifting and stuff. But thing with college was there was, um, you still had youth on your side, but there was like, alcohol, stress, lack of sleep, distractions. So it was always a priority of mine. Never my number one priority, but there, my lifestyle definitely had an impact on, like, I'd get like weird, like nagging injuries here and there just from inflammation from like booze and stuff. Um, I never dialed down or dialed in on my diet. Um, I didn't have a meal plan after my freshman year. So everything that I ate, I had to cook, which was a great lesson for a college kid. But as a result, like I would always try to get like cheap food, like, you know, instant mashed potatoes. Those are cheap and
Right.
easy. It had to be
Yeah.
easy. But it was around this time that I also started getting into fasting. And
Mm.
I'm an enormous proponent of fasting. I think fasting is it's really like a cheat code. It's just, I can't say enough good things about it. So I was doing intermittent fasting. So I would eat for 8 hours, or I'd have an eating window of 8 hours a day. And then for 16 hours, um, I would not eat at all, 0 calories. And it's a pretty like fairly common thing nowadays talking about fasting, but this was 2013 where
Yeah.
there was not literature, widely available or widely known about these topics. So it was just kind of
And
like, oh, let's just see what it's like.
yeah, and what are some of those like benefits of intermittent fasting that you found like in your research?
So there's a lot of benefits. Most of them are overblown. There's stuff like, oh, dude, your human growth hormone spikes when you're fasting. So like, it's almost like you're taking anabolic steroids because your HGH is up, bro. But it's by such a small amount. There's things like this. Insulin sensitivity is definitely a benefit, but from like a holistic point of view, it's it's not a magic bullet. Like intermittent fasting is not a magic bullet. I would definitely recommend intermittent fasting for someone that's trying to lose weight. I was trying to gain weight, so I was trying to have my cake and eat it too. Two birds with one stone. But I was
Definitely.
coming up. I was coming up empty-handed on that one, and even more seriously later on, which we'll briefly talk about. But uh, fasting is just, or intermittent fasting especially, it's good just because you cut out a whole meal and
Hmm.
you start to reevaluate your relationship with food and hunger. Because if you're not used to that kind of thing, if you don't ever go hungry, like it's a really, you get hungry, you get an appetite and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go get a snack or I'm gonna go eat my next meal. But fasting really forces you to reevaluate that relationship where it's like, oh, I'm hungry, but I'm not gonna eat for another 3 or 4 hours. Like that's when, I'm sticking to my routine.
Yeah.
So that's honestly one of the biggest things is that reevaluation. Um, and that's what did it for me. Since then, I stopped viewing food for the most part as like a pleasurable experience. It was really like, okay, this is fuel. You know, I don't get my fuel yet. I need another 2 hours to get my fuel.
Mm.
It also helps you make better decisions because, like, if it's Friday at like 2 a.m., like you're not gonna you're not gonna have that piece of pizza because it's outside of your diet window or your feeding window. So
Mm.
fasting's cool, man. I think that, and like I said, we'll kind of get into this a little bit later, hopefully. But long-term fasting, like that's really the thing I'm excited about nowadays. These like longer
Yeah.
24, 48, 72-hour fasts, those are the really, really cool tools in the toolbox that I started using a little bit later in my fitness journey. But that was college, man. I trained hard. Um, I tried to gain weight, but I couldn't really gain too much weight. I learned how to cook. I ate a lot of eggs and milk and oatmeal. Um, and yeah, I lifted for strength. And there's a
There you go.
there's a big difference between lifting styles, like training for strength versus training for size. But that's all I knew. It's like, okay, cool. Like I assumed that I would get bigger if I got stronger, and I got pretty strong. I didn't really get very big though. But anyways, dude, college was cool. Then I graduated and left behind that beautiful gym. It was the most amazing gym, and started. It was like, yeah, home gym master race at that point. I lived with a buddy. We had a home gym, and it was just a power rack with a barbell. Pretty much like that was it, and like it had a pull up attachment thing to it. So just continued like learning. And this is when I got into keto. Yeah, we're gonna talk about keto.
Heyo.
Yeah, keto sucks. And I can say that with certainty, at least for myself.
And
It
what
was
what is
not.
keto?
Yeah, so keto is it's essentially you don't eat carbs and you force your body into a ketogenic state to where instead of burning like sugar, starches, carbs, your body switches over to burning fat. So the idea is, okay, like you don't eat carbs and your body starts eating the fat in your fat cells. And there's a lot of other nuances and intricacies, of course, but that's essentially like the big picture. So I did it for a whopping 9 months. I didn't have, I mean, I did it strict keto, but you can still, carbs are in a lot of things like avocado. Avocado probably has a carb or two.
Hmm.
But I didn't have more than 5 carbs in a day
Whoa.
for 9 months. Dude, it
Wow.
was brutal. And you get used to it, but and I was also trying to gain weight, which is crazy. So the meals I was eating, it was like for dinner for breakfast I'd have like 8 eggs and cheese and an avocado. And then I was only eating 2 meals at this time. And then my dinner would be like a steak, 4 burger patties, kielbasa, sausage, and like a block
Yeah.
of cheese. I was eating, and I know it's ridiculous. And I was tracking my calories at this time because I wasn't gaining weight. And I was like, why aren't I gaining any weight? I'm eating 3,600 calories a day. Um, and yeah, there's definitely like a hormonal reason why I wasn't gaining any weight. I could have eaten 4,000, 5,000 calories and I maybe still not have gained any weight. But eating all that grease and I try to keep it as healthy as I could, but there's still oil and grease and fat, just cheese. Dude, it was brutal eating that much
Yeah.
meat and cheese, like 3,600 calories of meat and cheese and eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But my physique was actually pretty good at that point and I got pretty strong in spite of keto. Keto definitely held me back. I'll never do it again, but I'm glad that I did it so I can say definitively, yeah, it sucks. Fasting does everything that keto says that it'll do, and it does it better. It does it quicker. Fasting is just the way to go.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well, that's cool. Yeah, that's wild. So once you graduated college, would you say you like I guess I don't know, that's when you started getting into like more dietary aspects of fitness and health? Because you were obviously you were lifting heavy, but you said like a big thing that held you back in college was like I wasn't tuning in my diet at all.
Yeah. So, after college, got a job, and I had more control over what I was eating because I could spend money.
You're
I would
right.
we'd go buy steaks. We'd go to Wegmans and buy like a ribeye steak and be like,
Yeah.
oh, yes. So I started really like tracking calories and everything. And it was good, but I never actually did like a standard, um, I guess you'd call it like a bodybuilding or like a meal prepping kind of a diet. Like I never really spent that much time doing that kind of stuff because I wanted to get the most bang for my buck. Just in general, I wanted to get bang for my buck, and sitting there and weighing my almonds or whatever, like that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to enjoy my life, and that goes for like everything. That's like my whole philosophy. You just have to get the big things out of the way in form of habit. And then after that, you can like tweak little things here and there if you want to spend that time and energy doing so.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, at this point, dude, like I was just, I don't know. It was just, yeah, like cool. Let's try like some weird diet fad that we've heard a little bit about. And then, yeah, and really kind of from then all the way until now, I've just kind of been eating like pretty intuitively. Um, at this point, like I know what's good and what's bad. Not that there's like straight up good food or bad food, but day to day, I understand like what my body wants and what it needs. Um, and I deviate a lot. I'll have full disclosure. I had McDonald's tonight. First
Mm-hmm.
time in a little bit, but hey, yeah, before this podcast, dude, I had a couple double hamburgers.
Ooh, heck yeah, man.
Um, and yeah, just because it doesn't, especially doing it for this long, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, dude, nowadays I got the home gym, nice power rack in my garage. I lift at like 5 in the morning. Um,
Heck yeah.
I try to run 3 times a week. Yeah, lifting at 5 in the morning, and it's December now. It's getting colder and colder.
Oh man.
In the summertime, you just go out there in your shorts or whatever and you lift. Now I wake up at 5 and I'm like, oh, get on my hat, my jacket, my pajama pants, my thick like hiking socks,
Oh
and
my gosh.
then I get out there and I always warm up on the treadmill, just like walk. I walk half a mile because it's like 5 in the morning. My body's not
Mhm.
awake. And then I do my first set and I grab the barbell and it's like ice cold. It's just
Uh,
like it's not a good feeling, but it always feels so good after it. And it feels good like 5 minutes into the workout because I'm awake and
yeah.
everything. Um, but yeah, dude, I'm not focusing on strength anymore. Like throughout the years, I've kind of tweaked some things here and there, and I'm doing more like volume now. So like hypertrophy or size training. Keeping the weights low, volume high, just having a good time. Um, I'm I figured out how to gain weight, and right now I'm 210 pounds. So
Nice.
it's it's like I said before, it's not a lean 210. I've definitely packed on some fat as a consequence of my bulk, but um, it's all going to the right places and it's all part of the plan. So that's what's going on now, dude. I'm just like enjoying lifting. What was that? 4 days a week.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Like it's definitely it's like an interesting journey, and I think it's a journey that like most people can very much relate to, because it's like, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea, but I did research, I figured it out because this was something that was important to me. And why was it something that was important to you? Like beyond just like, yeah, I was in sports in high school and we had strength and body, but like what about it like triggered that like intellectual curiosity to like, okay, I need to learn more about this.
Uh, man. So especially as a high schooler, an impressionable high schooler that we all were,
Hmm.
um, wanting wanting to, like maybe at first it was like lifting for girls,
Yeah,
like
oh yeah.
cool, like I'm gonna get like shredded or whatever. I'm gonna get big and beefy so that girls will like me. Maybe that was it. I honestly don't remember. But along the way, dude, it totally like radically transforms. And, obviously I don't live for girls now. I'm married. Um, and, you know, I, I'm trying to remember. That's a great question. though. I don't remember why I started lifting, but it was probably something like that. It's just like
Yeah.
the culture is fun. It felt like it was a good use of time, and I enjoyed um like becoming one with my body, becoming in tune with it, and
Yeah.
learning about it because it was mine. Your body's like you own it. It's really the
Yeah.
only thing that you truly own is your
Right.
body. Maybe your soul if you're a spiritual religious person. um but
Well,
like your body is what it's what you have here.
yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. That's Well, I remember, I don't know, I've obviously known you for a long time, so I've gotten to witness this journey like from afar, and like, when we lived together, got to see it very firsthand, and it's just wild to see like how driven you are, and like I don't even know the half of it, and like I obviously learned a lot like during this podcast, and because I had no idea you had like done research on this stuff, and like yeah, I've looked at these studies to understand like where they like what's the scientific background on keto or lifting or whatever it may be, and that was like eye opening to me. Like we're in this accountability group where we get to share our different like fitness goals for the week and for the month and stuff like that. And you were like, "Hey, here's a really good article on running." And it was like, "What?" I had no idea things like that existed. It's like, of course, Chase, if you went out and looked for it, but like you did. You went out and looked for it. Meanwhile, I'm just like putting on my shoes and running. That's all I do. I just put on my shoes and go running. But you have like, the research to back it up. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that too. Overall, I think that research is pretty overrated, which is like, I don't know, probably a controversial take, maybe ironic, but dude, this is one field. This is one, I don't want to call it like an industry because that's not what it is, but this is one like aspect of life that, man, anecdotal accounts and anecdotal stories are worth way more, in my opinion, than research.
Mm,
Like research, because this is such a strange and like niche like hobby or aspect of life, whatever you want to call it. There's not going to be a study that's really all that meaningful to you or me or whoever. The
yeah.
people that they bring in for these studies, um, they're their own people. Everyone's so individual. Everyone has a different body type. Everyone has, uh, well, okay, so yeah, everyone's individual, and all these studies are so done. They're done so wildly different. So you have no idea of telling, is this good or bad? And to take a study of anything really, but we're talking about fitness, I guess. To take a study on face value, to take the science or whatever you want to call it, the research on face value, just reading the abstract and like, oh, see,
Yeah.
look, like
Uh-huh.
it's so short sighted. And I'd rather, especially in fitness, dude, I'd rather like walk up to a big guy in the gym who looks natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's caveat there. But just like, hey man, like what did you do? What
Yeah.
tell me like what you did. And because the stuff that guy did, that's not documented in studies. There's no way
Yeah.
that you can have a study that encompasses someone's fitness journey. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
What you can find out from a study is like, oh, so like there's a 30% better long head of the tricep activation when you do French press versus tricep extension. You know what I mean? Like none of that
Yeah.
is useful. That's not useful stuff. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up about studies. Like, don't get too wrapped up in data. Just go out and do it. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you're gonna find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Well, I think that's a great point. And like that's something that I've been playing around with in the back of my head is like everyone, a lot of people throw out like, "Oh, well that's just anecdotal evidence." Like you can't take that as something worth um, you know, thinking about critically. And it's like, well, it's still evidence. Like you have to consider it. It can't be just tossed away because it's, not conducted, double blind studies or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's still something to consider. Maybe it's not like how much weight do you put on it, but it is something to consider. And that's actually like one of the benefits. And you and I have different opinions on this. And I'll bring it up just because it's an interesting segue. But like you mentioned, the anecdotal evidence and going up to some big guy in the gym and it's like, hey man, what do you do? And that's one of the reasons why I actually like public gyms quite a bit compared to your home gym master races. Uh, because I enjoy like the community around like healthy, active people. And that's like one of the reasons like excuse me, we ran the Turkey Trot 5K in Fredericksburg, and that I love those types of events because it's like a 5K isn't much running, right? It's 3 miles about. But you're surrounded by people who are up at 7 in the morning on a holiday who are all going to run a 5K. And it's like, that's a type of person who's going to do that. And I like those types of people who are, you know, they're active, at least they're willing to go out in the cold and go running. And like, same thing with people who work out at the gym. Like, you know, you could probably make the argument that home gym is probably better, like for you, or like for you as an individual, not you, Brian, but like for the individual. But I think for me, like I see people working out in the gym, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting motivated by them. It's like those are the types of people I want to surround myself with, who are active and fit and are, they look good, they're strong, they got muscles, and it's like, whoa, that's sweet. Like, and that's something like I used to think a lot when I was not someone who's into my fitness, and it was like I always thought like, oh, America's so overweight, like there's no healthy people here. And then it's like, yeah, there are. They're all in the gym. Like, what are you talking about, dude? If you go to these places that these people are at, you'll find them. And that's something that really like kept me in check and like just allowed me to, okay, Chase, you're an idiot for thinking that, one. And like two, yeah, you start to, I don't know, reflect the people you surround yourself with. And that's one of the reasons why I like public gyms.
Yeah, man, and that's a totally valid reason for preferring um, a commercial gym. You have all those people, every point that you said, obviously. For me, I like being the strongest guy in my gym. No, no, honestly though, I've I've done the commercial gym, I've done the college gym, I've done all that, and at a certain point, for me at least, it was like, man, I don't want to wait for a squat rack. I don't want to wait for a bench press. Um, and I don't I don't like a lot of gym culture, and I'm especially today. Like I couldn't imagine going into a commercial gym today. Just I don't know, just all the like the new gym culture, and maybe it's overblown on the internet. It probably is, but I really do enjoy just. I don't have I don't have any excuse. It's in my garage. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
just go out there and it's my gym. Like this is my equipment, and I love this equipment.
Mhm.
It's not the best equipment, but it's mine.
Yeah.
And and I never ever have to adjust my routine because oh man, the cables are busy. Like nothing
Right.
like that. I don't have to drive. Oh, I think it would be challenging if I had to drive to the gym. Like
Yeah.
just getting in the car, making an event out of it. It's just I don't I because I don't like the idea of that. I have a home gym, and
Yeah.
even and not everyone can have a home gym, but you can have more than you think. If you buy some gymnastics rings, that's what I
Mhm.
had for a while, dude. You can get a whole workout with become a little bit of a gymnast, dude. It's humbling getting on those rings, as you know.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, that's like my dad, he, introduced me to the gymnastics rings, and it's crazy like the amount of like core strength that you have to like have, and the flexibility. It's impressive. And like that actually brings me to another point I wanted to touch on with you and your fitness journey. Like you've used this term a couple of times, and it's called like your toolbox. All the different tools that you've like accumulated throughout your fitness journey. And I think that's like a really, really interesting, like one like way to look at it, but also well, I guess that's the only way to look at it. It's like a really interesting way to characterize your, the different fitness tools that you use to stay healthy and maintain your fitness. So like, you mentioned intermittent fasting as one, or fasting in general as one. Oh, we didn't even touch on that. We can get to that next. um but yeah, intermittent fasting, and I would even argue like your different workout routines could fall into that as well, like whether you're like building bulk or cutting, or why are you eating so much. I don't know, those all sort of fall under that umbrella for me.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of things that I've picked up along the way. Um and a lot of things that are probably going to be hard to explain just because they're just a part of what I do every day. You know what I mean? So for me,
Yeah.
I don't ever think about lifting. Lifting's not a thing I think about anymore. It's just I just get up and I do it because it's the best part of my day. Like, let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are specific things like, yeah, you said I do call it my toolbox that, I might not use all the time. But sometimes I need that screwdriver.
Hmm.
So um, fasting and keto, gymnastics ring type training, like learning how to meal prep and cut and all these things. Yeah, you go through this long enough and you're gonna have to learn these things. Not like it's a obligation, but like just doing it, you will learn it. You will pick these things up along the way.
Yeah, out
So,
of necessity almost.
well, some of them I guess not. Like fasting, like long-term fasting, some people could probably call a little extreme. Um, I guess we can kind of go into that. That's kind of what I want to talk about right now. Fasting is
Yeah.
cool. It's something to get excited about. It goes against like everything that like modern nutrition stands for, I guess. Um, Everyone will tell you that like you're starving yourself, that it's unhealthy, and you're just gonna it's it's unhealthy physically, but also mentally, and it's creating a damaging relationship with food and da 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 da. Da. I don't know. Fasting is awesome. The whole premise of it is you just don't eat. You just don't eat. It's it's so simple. Like if I wanna lose weight, there's two ways to do it, and they're different. They're not better than each other. So there's a traditional, I guess you'd call it like a cut or like a diet where you
Caloric
restrict your
deficits.
yeah, you have a small caloric deficit every day, and you continue lifting or working out or whatever you're doing, um, and you slowly lose weight. Uh, that's a very there's different ways to do it. There's ways the way that I have most experience with is a very small deficit where you want to maintain as much muscle mass as you can while losing as much fat as you can. Um, that's one thing. That's cutting. That's dieting. Whatever. The other thing is fasting.
Mm.
It's so simple, dude. If you're cutting, like you might not have to count calories, but you have to think about it, and you have to think
Yeah.
about it pretty good. Okay, I ran today and that was 200 calories, so like I need to eat another 200 calories to make up for that, to make sure my deficit's not so big. It costs energy. It's a resource. You have to
Yeah,
think
that
about that
mental
stuff.
bandwidth.
Yeah. You know what doesn't cost any mental bandwidth? Just not eating. So uh yeah, you just literally just don't eat. And there's a it does all kinds of crazy good things for your body, especially if you do it semi regularly. Or if you've done it long enough, your body adapts much quicker. Um, the number one thing I guess that's easy to talk about is the weight loss. Who would have thought you don't eat for 72 hours, you lose weight?
What?
Yeah, you lose weight, dude. A lot of it's water weight, but you lose weight. If I wanted to, and you can, depending on how. Okay, I guess this is when I want to talk about this really quickly. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a I'm not a nutritionalist. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. Do your own research. But if you know if you're very overweight and you have like 50, 60, 70 pounds to lose, you could go through the traditional diet process and just hate yourself, right? Like diets are not fun, da 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 da, whatever. Or you could just suffer for like a week and not eat
Mm.
for a whole week and lose probably, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds, depending on who you are. Legitimately. Like that's not out of this world. That figure, 10 to 20 pounds perhaps.
Yeah,
And
but
then
not eating for a week,
you can do it,
that's
dude. No, that's
7-day fast.
yes, you can do that kind of stuff. It's easier if you are overweight because you have fuel, dude. You have resources just sitting in your body.
Mm.
Um, I implore you, if you're questioning uh, fasting, and if I sound crazy, just do a little bit of research about it. It's wild. Yeah, it
Yeah.
sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks for however long you do it. There's no doubt about it. But you gain so much from it. From a weight loss perspective, you you save a little bit of money perhaps. No, but it's good for your cells. They start to regenerate. Um has like anti-aging benefits. It's wild. There's countless studies that are coming out that are like, oh yeah, we tried this stuff on rats and they're living a lot longer now. Like all the
Yeah.
rats that we, that we've put on this fasting protocol, they're all living longer. They're outliving the control group by like a mile and a half. Like it's crazy.
Wow.
Um there's so much there's so many benefits that I can't even like really talk about in this podcast. It's also been a while since I've done a fast myself, so
Yeah.
perhaps a little bit rusty on the nomenclature and all the intricacies. But um, yeah, fasting's cool, dude. That's what I did last year to lose weight. I just fasted. You don't have to do like a week long fast. You can do like a 48-hour fast and then
Yeah.
another 48-hour fast and then another 48-hour fast. Just have that one or two meals, take it at your own pace. Just decide, okay, this week I'm going to do two 48-hour long fasts. Or
Yeah.
start slow, obviously, like a 12-hour fast and then a 16-hour fast and then a 20-hour fast, whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's funny, like listening to you describe it. Like I think the easiest like benefit to cite is the weight loss. It's like, yeah, you don't eat, you're gonna lose weight. But what I think a lot of and I don't know jack about this stuff, but from what I remember from listening to other podcasts and what little research I've done, nothing. I've done no research. I've only
Mhm.
listened to podcasts. But they talk a lot about the those like benefits when you like even from like an evolutionary perspective. It's like, yeah, we didn't have like constant food for the majority of like that humans have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and that's we would consume more on like a that type of a basis of like we would have like we kill this giant animal and then we would eat it and then we wouldn't have food for like a couple of 3 days until we had another big kill or whatever, hunter gatherer type stuff. And yeah, I think a lot of those studies go into the benefits of how our body has adapted to that, and now introducing you know, the like what you mentioned earlier with the, oh, you're hungry, you go get a snack. It's like there's never that delayed gratification, especially when it comes to food. And, there's like tons of benefits. I wish I came I wish I had more to talk about with that. But yeah, I've definitely heard of all those like benefits of fasting, and it like the anti-aging stuff, like it sounds like hokey. And you mentioned with intermittent fasting, it's like a cheat code, right? It's like one of those unspoken like hidden secrets when it comes to health and fitness is fasting. And I think it's really interesting and definitely worth like diving into maybe on another podcast.
Yeah, and we don't have the research out in front of us, so this is definitely not like a podcast about fasting. Another thing I want to just quickly caveat all this with is like, hey, this is when I was talking earlier about levels, about how everything,
Hmm.
this is all, there's different levels for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Fasting is a different level. Like if you want to get into fitness, like you don't have to consider fasting. Don't listen to what we're saying. Like if you just want to, enter the foray of exercise, like you don't have to think about starving yourself for a week. That's not what
Yeah.
that's not the lesson that I want to impart
Yeah.
here.
Well, and I think that's like a really good uh segue into um yeah, like you mentioned how you don't have to think about lifting anymore. You like it's kind of on the back burner, or it's like a almost a subconscious like process at this point. And that's um comes with a lot of time and experience. And I remember when I was first getting into lifting, I was talking to you about this. I was like, man, I don't want to write down all my like weights and map out a fitness you know training regiment for like the next 6 months. Like I'm not trying to do that. That's too much time. I'm way too busy. And you're like, I spend 5 minutes a day on this stuff. Like that's all I think about. And like it's probably even less now because it's like, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I have it ingrained in me. And I think that can be a pretty big barrier to entry for a lot of folks who aren't into this type of lifestyle. It's just, oh, I can't think about that stuff. And that's now that I'm more experienced and more versed in, like, yeah, I've been lifting for 3 years, like results have been pretty minimal, like maybe now that this is a part of my lifestyle, it's like, okay, well, now how can I start taking it more seriously? How can I start maximizing my time is really what it comes down to. Is like, yeah, I'm spending 30 minutes in the gym every day. It's like, okay, well, how can I make those 30 minutes the most beneficial just by tweaking like one or two different things in my lifestyle? And that's like, now that I have the habit of working out, like I can start optimizing it. And that's something I think folks who are wanting to, everyone wants to be healthier, or if you don't want to be healthier, you're listening to this podcast, you should try to improve on that, get a little bit, um, you know, and that's how I started with running. That's my biggest fitness thing, is like running. I run, I try to run 10 miles a day. Haven't done that for a couple weeks, but or 10 miles a day. Whoa. Dude, no, slow down there, Chase. What am I, lying? Um, no, but try to run 10 miles a week. And like I said earlier, it's like I just put on my shoes and I go running. Like I don't think about anything. The first time I ran a 10K, I think I was like having a scotch and like watching a podcast or something like that. And I was like, I need to run 6 miles tomorrow. That's what I need to do. And I just woke up and I did it. And that's the most amount of effort I put into thinking about running. It's just, that's what I do.
Yeah,
but,
man. I mean,
and that's all it takes too, is like,
it,
if you want to get into this, just start doing it.
and that's a great point. There's that, the building of the habit, and at first it'll take mental bandwidth. That's what we're calling it. Mental bandwidth, emotional energy, like whatever. It costs something. And at first it takes that bandwidth, and then you develop that habit, and then it no longer requires any extra thought. Like you just do it, right? It takes a while for that to happen, but if you enjoy, once you start seeing a little bit of the results or feeling the results, it becomes easier to get into the gym. And before you know it, you do it automatically. But there's also, so that's one thing. There's also, you mentioned like building, like tracking all the workouts and like planning out your routine or whatever. That is a whole different thing that follows that same pattern of, like at first, you look up a routine on the internet, or like your friend is doing one and you just do whatever he's doing. Like that works. And then over time you start thinking to yourself, just like you said, like, oh, I wonder how I can make this more efficient for myself. I wonder how, like, oh, I have this goal that just came to me. I'd like a bigger bench press, or I'd like a bigger squat. Like, how do I do that? And you start learning a little bit about programming, and that's, building these, like, I guess you call it like building routine, choosing which movements to do, what rep schemes. And this also has levels, obviously. Managing fatigue and stuff like that goes pretty deep. But it starts with just, okay, cool, I'm going to do like this basic program. And then I'm at the point now where I just kind of have my routine that I build every now and then, probably like once a year, once every 6 months, I do something different to change it up. But I can look at my routine, or like write it down and just say like, oh yeah, this is going to be good for me. And I can see another routine and be like, that doesn't look like a very good routine no matter who's doing it. And I can see another one that's like, this is a good routine for someone that has these goals. So you, just like the habit of getting in the gym, how at first it costs a lot, and then over time it doesn't. This is the same thing with, getting to that next step and building routine. For example, it costs energy at first, and then over time it doesn't cost any energy. And that's the same thing with everything that we're talking about. Everything, it's daunting or unattractive, or whatever, you don't want to do it, you don't feel the need to, and then slowly all the other things that are costing energy, they start costing less energy, and then you have that surplus of energy, the spirit ball of energy to throw at maybe learning how to do like a, advance whatever you want to advance. Start learning how to program, start learning how to, maybe you want to become like an Olympic style weightlifter. Like, oh, let's dabble into this, or let's see how big I can get my deadlift. You know what I mean? So everything has levels on this stuff. And you can take it in whatever direction you want, or you can just like maintain what you've got, and that's totally cool too. You're doing more than most people if you're doing that.
Yeah, and that's definitely the boat that I'm in, is like, and that's, I think I'm gonna hit like a transition period, because yeah, I've been working out for a while now, and my goal is so long term of just like, yeah, I just want to be working out forever. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm still doing that, because you have to work out every day if you want to be working out forever. um but now it's like, okay, well, what are my short term goals, or like, not short term, near term goals, like, what are my near term goals? I think I'm slurring my words, dude. um but yeah, what are my near term goals that I want to accomplish? And that's something I need to start thinking about more so. And that's what I really liked when we kicked off the accountability group. You just threw it out there like, hey, everyone needs goals. What are your goals? Write them down in this chat so we can keep track of what's going on. And that was the first time I really thought about like, okay, well, let me think about, because I don't write down my lifts or anything like that, or what weights I bench or anything. I just throw on my weights and then I crank them out, and that's pretty much what I do. But once you started hitting me with like, hey, you should be setting near term goals, then it's like, all right, well, if I'm going to be doing this forever, I should have goals in between forever and where I'm at right now. All right.
Yeah, and they don't have to be lifting goals either. Um, we're talking about lifting, and we're talking about running a little bit, but it can be anything. It could be
Mhm.
hiking. It could be walking. It could be bicycling. I have my fair share of miles in the saddle cycling. But I would just challenge anybody listening to this uh, that isn't a current like aficionado of fitness. I would challenge them. I'd implore them to pick something that they're interested in, and just try it out. Try to build a habit of it. Do it every week for a month or two. And if it's running, it's running. If it's lifting, it's lifting. Or if it's just doing push-ups and squats in your bedroom like every day, like make a habit out of it, and see where your body goes and see where your mind goes.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee that it's going to be a beneficial experience.
Yeah, that's awesome, Brian. I think that's a great way to end the podcast. I'm really grateful for the time that you gave us on this pod. I think it was really beneficial for me. And I'm sure it's going to be beneficial for the folks listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. Appreciate it.
All right, say bye to Craig.
All right, see you, Craig.
Peace out. Whoa, hello everybody. I hope you all enjoyed that podcast. It was so great having Brian on the pod to dive deep into, his fitness approach and his lifestyle as it comes to health and all of that. If it isn't abundantly clear, we're not expert in this stuff, so definitely do your own research, and maybe some of these terms or buzzwords that we were throwing out sort of inspires you to like, oh, let me look into that a little bit more. Is that something that can work for me? Let me try it for a month and see how my life improves. Or if it doesn't improve, like go back to what you were doing. Worst case scenario, you're you're slightly better off, or worst case scenario, you just go back to what you were doing, right? But next week on the podcast, we actually have our musical friend Michael, who's back on. He of course, does all of our musical themes, and I'm really excited for you all to hear his story, because he is actually someone who was looking for advice on how to get his health in order, and asked Brian, like, hey man, do you have any tips for me? And Brian just said, yeah, do these things. And Michael started doing those things, and he became a much healthier person because of it. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear that, because it was directly based on Brian's advice. A lot of the same advice he gave in this podcast he gave to Michael like a couple of years ago, and now look at him go. In terms of updates for me, I actually wanted to give you all a quick update on my goals for like year-end goals, because I wrote them down in a little bit more detail compared to what I talked about a couple of weeks ago. So let me see if I can find my little priorities 2023 goals. So first one is perform my job with excellence. That's my professional job, not this podcast side project, but that's number one. Number two is fitness, and I have a couple of subcategories for that. Running, so I'm finally going to put a number on it. I want to do 400 miles for the year and run 1 half marathon. I'm probably not going to sign up for one. I'm just going to run 13 miles one day, and that'll be my half marathon. As far as lifting goes, I want to do 4 to 5 lifting sessions per week. I definitely want to see some results, which I haven't locked down yet, but I want to see more results. And then I have a weight goal as well. I want to drop down probably to 170, 175. I'm 183 right now, so I want to get down to that, closer to 10 pounds less than what I weigh now. I also have some personal goals, I want to buy a house soon. I think that's going to be a cool goal. We'll see. Maybe this podcast will turn into a real estate podcast, and I'll start competing with Bigger Pockets or something like that. But yeah, we'll see. And then we're going to get to our writing goals. So finish Merrily Barber in March. That's my goal. I also want to rewrite my first screenplay. And then I want to write a TV show, and I want to write another screenplay. So that's my goals. Maybe add in another screenplay there or something like that. For Classic Studios, I want to release 1 short film, maybe 2 short films. I just remembered another idea that I'd come up with a couple of months ago that I was oh yeah, that could be a short film. Maybe that'll be a second one, but we'll see how that goes. I don't really know. And then for the improved podcast goals, I just want to continue posting consistently and making great content for you all. And I want to expand the folks who I talk to. I love all the people I talk to, but I want to start talking to more people. Just see how many interesting folks we can get on this podcast. I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's kind of my goals for the year, and a quick goal update for the week. If you'd like to get in contact with me about your goals or projects you're working on, shoot me an email at theimprovedpodcast@gmail.com. And I already said this, but shout out to Green Bean for all of our musical intros and outros. And if you want to leave a 5-star review, go ahead and do that. Thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends. If you think any of them are interested in fitness or getting their life in order, or you want to give them a subtle nod that hey, you need to get your life in order, check out this podcast. Please share it with them. We love it when you share it with people, and we also love it when you leave 5-star reviews. Oh man, I love me some 5-star reviews. Don't have any more to read just yet, but I know they're coming. I know it. I can feel it coming. All right. That's about everything from me. Thank you to everyone who's signed up for the Classic Studios newsletter. Feel free to do that for the next quarter, and I hope you all achieve your goals this week, and I'll see you on Monday for another episode of the Improve Podcast. Goodbye.